guys, welcome back to the channel. So let's start today's video with the next chapter, which is the chapter number 5, business stakeholders in a business organization. Okay, so let's quickly get into the learning objectives that we are expecting from this chapter. These are defining a stakeholder and the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder, different types of stakeholders which are internal, external, connected, and their impact on the organization. How does these different stakeholders interact and their interest conflict, the power and the influence of these various shareholders on the organization according to Mendel's framework. Okay, so let's quickly get into the chapter. So first let's discuss what are stakeholders and how are stakeholders and shareholders two different terms, because many a times in a daily conversation we tend to interchange both these words, stakeholders with shareholders or shareholders with stakeholders, which is technically not right, because stakeholders is a wider term. So what exactly are stakeholders? Stakeholders are those individuals or group whose interest who has interest in what the organization does or how the organization functions. Okay, and who influence the organization's actions or the organization's decisions on a wider basis. Okay, so the company needs to look towards the interest of all these stakeholder groups. Okay, so shareholders are technically a part of stakeholders. Okay, shareholders are a type of stakeholders. We'll discuss this in the further chapter, so the concept will be much more clearer. Okay, let's discuss what are the types of stakeholders. Okay, these are three types: internal, external, and connected. Okay, what are internal stakeholders? Internal stakeholders are those stakeholders who regularly come, okay, on a day-to-day basis, regularly come in the organization. Okay, who has a day-to-day interest in the organization. For example, their employees, the organization's employees, and the managers or the executive directors. Okay, not non-executive directors but the executive directors. Okay, for example, employees have their expectations for pay, working conditions, and job security. Managers or directors have for status, pay, bonus, job security. All right, so we'll do the test understanding number 1 later with all together. Let's get to the connected shareholders. Connected stakeholders are those stakeholders which does not come on a day-to-day basis in contact with the organization but have a regular dealing with the organization. For example, it's shareholders, it's customers, it's suppliers, and the finance providers, for example. Okay, so the shareholders, okay, the shareholders does not come regularly in the company and sit all together and have a meeting. Okay, they come on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis or an annual basis. Okay, so they have dealings with the organization on a regular intervals but are not interested daily on a daily basis. Okay, now customers, as a customer we does not go to a supermarket, for example, and buy certain products every day. Okay, we go there like on a 2 day or a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Okay, suppliers does not deal regularly, they deal on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, or a quarterly basis, like that. And the finance provider get interest on a quarterly basis or a yearly basis, so it's like that. So shareholders are what are the needs of the shareholders are interested on a steady flow of income, possible capital growth, and the continuation of the business. कस्टमर्स की क्या नीड्स होती हैं? सेटिस्फैक्शन ऑफ द कस्टमर्स नीड्स विल बी अचीव थ्रू द एडिंग वैल्यू फॉर मनी प्रोडक्ट एंड सर्विसेज. ओके, सप्लायर्स की क्या नीड्स होती है? सप्लायर्स हैव नीड वन प्रॉम्प्ट पेमेंट. ओके, and finance providers ability to repay the finance including the interest and the security of investments, right? So यहाँ पे कुछ थोड़ा clear हुआ होगा concept of difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder. Stakeholder is a wider term, whereas shareholder is a part of stakeholder. Okay, so these two terms cannot be used interchangeably. Okay, now external shareholders कौन से होते हैं? Which does not directly come in the contact of the organization but have an influence on the organization's activity. For example, the government, the trade unions, the pressure groups, and the community. Okay, first let's discuss the government. How does the government's needs, what are the government's needs and expectations with the organization? Okay, the government influences the organization's activity through various laws, through various policies. Okay, companies activities are central to the success of the economy, and the legislation must be met by the company, right? Various tax laws are introduced, various restrictions, various for example import export duties are introduced to affect the organization's activities. Now the pressure groups, what, how does the pressure groups help it is entire environmental pressure groups. How does these pressure groups affect? Now the company which causes a lot of environmental damage. Okay, these pressure groups oppose these companies. Now these pressure groups are not just a few of the people, but a large, like n number of people. So when these pressure groups oppose these organizations have to limit their environmental damage which they're causing. Okay, so like that they affect these pressure groups affect the activities of the organization. Okay, now community at large, the general public can be a stakeholder, especially if their lives are affected by the organization's decision. For example, some industrial company opens in a residential area. Okay, so obviously it cannot operate there, it has to shut down and move to somewhere, like in the countryside or some location. Okay, so community at large and trade unions, for example, a shopkeeper is violating the rules of the market. Okay, if the market is has decided to sell a certain product at rupees 150. Okay, but that particular shareholder is giving that same product for rupees 100 to attract more customers, then the trade union can oppose against against that shopkeeper. So the trade unions affect or they influence the activities of the organization. Okay, now primary and secondary shareholders. What are primary and secondary shareholders? Primary shareholders are like the employees, the directors, the shareholders, the basically the internal and the connected, both are the primary shareholders, and the external category of shareholders fall under secondary stakeholders. Okay, now the shareholder stakeholder conflict, sorry, the stakeholder conflict. How now, obviously these stakeholders, different groups of stakeholders have different expectations from the organization. Okay, now these expectations might conflict. For example, the employee versus the manager. Now the managers needs, what are the needs of a manager with the organization? The manager would want more bonuses, manager would want to report more higher sales or higher targets as to improve their bonuses or to get more job titles, but the employees need more salaries. Okay, more paid holidays. So these there is a conflict of interest. Now the stakeholders, shareholders and the customers want good value, good products at a low price, but the shareholders would want higher profits. Okay, thus charging higher prices. Conflict of interest. General public versus shareholders. General public would want less environmental damage. Okay, but in order to minimize the environmental damage, there would be a high cost involved which the shareholders would not want. So there's a conflict of interest. Managers versus shareholders. Managers would want higher bonuses. Okay, but the shareholders want higher profits and higher dividends. So there's a conflict of interest. So it's like that. अब इन कन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट में से हमें ये डिसाइड करना होता है कि हमें किसको प्रायोरिटी देनी है. हमें शेयर होल्डर्स की नीड्स को हमें प्रायोरिटी पे रखना है, या हमें मैनेजर्स की नीड्स को प्रायोरिटी पे रखना है, या जनरल पब्लिक की नीड्स को हमें प्रायोरिटी पे रखना है, हमें ये चूज़ करना पड़ता है. ओके, वी हैव टू कंसिडर ऑल द नीड्स ऑफ ऑल द टाइप्स ऑफ शेयर होल्डर्स, बट ऑन अ प्रायोरिटी बेसिस. ओके, हम सबको प्रायोरिटी पे नहीं रख सकते कि हम एम्प्लॉयज़ को भी हायर सैलरीज दे दें, हम शेयर होल्डर्स को हायर डिविडेंड्स भी दे दें, और हम कोई एनवायरमेंटल डैमेज भी ना करें. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. कुछ ना कुछ हमें कहीं ना कहीं कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करना पड़ता है, बट किस सीक्वेंस में करना पड़ता है वो हमें प्रायोरिटाइज करना पड़ता है. तो उसमें हमें हेल्प करते हैं मैंडलियूज पावर इंटरेस्ट मैट्रिक्स. ओके, so what does it says? It has a table. Okay, this table form, okay, where we have two columns of level of power and the level of interest. ठीक है, level of power low, high, level of interest low and high. अब now the people, the stakeholder groups who have a low power, okay, who have a low power and low interest will have to be placed in the minimal effort group. Okay, now the people who have a higher power and a low interest, we will just keep them satisfied. Okay, now the people who have a high interest and a low power, will keep them informed, and the people who have high interest and high power, we will be the key players, will be our priority. Okay, I'll explain with example what I meant by minimal effort or key players or keep satisfied or keep informed with the help of examples. Okay, now let's discuss what are these examples for the minimal efforts, key players, keep informed and keep satisfied categories. Okay, so the key players, first of all, the key players are the major shareholders. Okay, the governments, the government. Okay, how the shareholders have the right to speak and affect the decisions taken by the company. Okay, the government can influence the decision of the company by imposing new rules or new policies. Okay, now the second is keep high power and low interest. Okay, high power and low interest, that is the keep satisfied category. Now how is the keep satisfied category? For example, the suppliers, okay, and the local community, okay, they need to be satisfied. Okay, all the, for example, the pressure environmental pressure groups, all these environmental pressure groups needs to be satisfied with, for example, the kind of environmental pollution the company is causing to the environment, and the suppliers for their payment terms and their payment prompts. Okay, and now next is the keep informed category. Keep informed category examples are the employees. Okay, the employees have a high interest in the company but has low power to affect the kind of decisions the company takes. Okay, so keep informed is the employees. Okay, and the minimal efforts is the general public, the general customers. Okay, they have a low interest and a low power, they have no power to affect how the company operates, or the how the what the decisions the company takes. Okay, and they have a low interest. Okay, does not matter even if it changes the price by 1 or 2 rupee or so. Okay, if they are a regular customer, they will anyhow purchase the goods, right? So it's like that. So I hope it's understood how to categorize people in not people, the stakeholder groups in these four categories, because in exam we'll have to check who have what level of interest in the company or who have what level of power. According to that only we will categorize these stakeholder groups into these four categories, and then we answer the question. Okay, so with this we end with the chapter. That's all for this chapter. Now just the test your understandings are remaining, so let's quickly look at them. Test understanding number one is which of the following statements is or are correct. The internal stakeholders have a little influence over the way an organization runs, which is absolutely false. The internal stakeholders have a high influence, and the needs and the expectations of the managers and the employees will tend to be the same as both the internal stakeholders, which is also false. So the answer is neither. Okay, now test to understand number two. Which of the following would not be described as a connected stakeholders? Customers. These are connected stakeholders. Suppliers are connected stakeholders. Employees are internal stakeholders. Okay, and shareholders again are connected stakeholders. These are employees. And test to understand number four. Test to understand number four says Chop Limited is a forestry business which leases several large woodlands from the central government of country Z. It currently employs 2,000 members of the staff across the country. Chop supplies over 300 small businesses with wood across country Z. However, recently its probability has been poor. Profitability has been poor and it has been struggling to pay any dividend. This has angered the company's three shareholders who own around 20% of Chop's share capital. The remainder is owned by the public, which with no one investor owning more than 1% of the total share capital. The three main shareholders who have asked the board of directors to consider making 200 employees redundant. The employees are not heavily unionized. State the appropriate strategy from Mendel's matrix for each of the following shareholders. So Chops customers have a minimal uh, power and a minimal interest. So these are the minimal effort category. Okay, now major shareholders has the highest power and highest influence. So these are the key players. Okay, now the employees have a high interest but has a low power. Okay, so these are the keep informed category. And government of country Z has a high power. Okay, has a high power but low interest. So it is keep satisfied. Now test to understand number 5. Test to understand number 5 says which of the following would be classified as an internal stakeholder: shareholder, customer, director, and finance provider. So it is answer number C, which are the directors. These are internal stakeholders. Okay, now internal stakeholders again are those stakeholders which come in contact with the organization on a daily basis. Okay, the daily basis are the directors. There are number of different ways for classifying stakeholders, including internal, connected, primary, secondary. Which two of the above category would suppliers fall into? Okay, so the answer would be connected and primary. So it is answer number C. Test to understand number 7. A public limited company has a large number of shareholders. The largest is H, a pension company. H owns 35% of A's share capital. None of the other shareholders own more than 10% of the share capital each. H has stated that it is happy with A's strategy and dividends and has no intention of intervening in A. If A prepares Mendel's matrix, which quadrant would H fall into? Minimal effort, keep satisfied, keep informed, or a keep link? So the answer would be keep satisfied, right? Keep satisfied. And test to understand number 8. A shareholder has the high level of interest but has a little influence over the organization. So we have a definition of one of the matrices. According to Mendelow's matrix, the strategy that would be adopted for this shareholder would be the keep informed, right? Has a high interest but a low power, right? So keep informed. For example, the employees. And the last test understanding, which is test understanding number 9, consider the following statements regarding stakeholders. Number 1, managers only need to consider those stakeholders who are key players on Mendelow's matrix. And number 2, employees and managers are both internal stakeholders, meaning that they have the same objectives as each other. Which of the following are true? So these are neither. Okay, the managers need to take all the stakeholders into consideration, and the employees and managers have a conflicting objectives. Okay, they have conflicting needs. So this we come to the end of the chapter. If you like today's video, please do subscribe to my channel, like the videos, and if you have any doubt, please feel free to comment in the comment section. I'll try to respond to all your doubts as soon as possible. And I'm feel free to give me a review about the videos so that I can correct whatever are the corrections. So yeah, that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next video. Bye bye.